into the Mwambashi stream, which is a tributary of the Kafue River. This was followed by another toxic incident on the 1st of March 2025, when Rongjing Mining Limited, also operating in the Copperbelt province, discharged substantial volumes of acid-laden waste into the aquatic environment, compounding the ongoing public health and ecological emergency in that area. These twin toxic events have placed tens of thousands, if not millions, of Zambians at grave risk. The Zambia Environmental Justice Coalition, comprising leading civil society organizations and environmental defenders, expressed its grave concern over the scale of this toxic spill and its ongoing impact on the affected communities. We reiterate our continued commitment to constructively engage with the government of the Republic of Zambia to ensure a just, transparent, and rights-based national response. Our concern as a coalition is heightened by the recent findings from an independent testing exercise, which were published by the Embassy of Finland on the 30th day of June 2025. This results from independent water quality analysis conducted on samples obtained at 3 sites, namely the tailings dam site in Tambishi, the Mwambashi stream, which is approximately 17 kilometers from the point of the bridge, and also from the Kafue River near Pongwe, approximately 100 kilometers from the point of the bridge. The results confirmed the presence of 24 heavy metals, which included lead, arsenic, cadmium, chromium, cobalt, and uranium. And at least 16 of these heavy metals were detected at levels far exceeding the World Health Organization's safety threshold. Communities such as Luela, Kalusale, and many others downstream face long-term exposure to highly toxic substances, risking or raising the risk of cancer, developmental disorders, organ damage, and other devastating effects on agriculture and water security. The United States Embassy in Lusaka, in its advisory issued on the 12th of June 2025, cautioned its nationals against consumption or use of water or aquatic life from the affected zones due to this confirmed heavy metal poisoning. This, along with other advisories from other diplomatic missions, validate the grave warning already raised by local experts, CSOs, and the communities themselves. These events, ladies and gentlemen, represent not just environmental concerns, but a violation of fundamental human rights and constitutional obligations. Section 4, subsection 1 of the Environmental Management Act, number 12 of 2011, guarantees every person in Zambia a right to a clean, safe, and healthy environment. Articles 255 and Article 257 of the Constitution of the Republic of Zambia, Amendment Act number 2 of 2016, impose a clear duty on the state to promote sustainable environmental management and to hold polluters accountable. We wish to remind both the government and the responsible mining entities that the polluter pays principle under Section 6D of the Environmental Management Act, as read with Article 255B of the Constitution, is not merely aspirational, but it is binding. This principle obligates entities responsible for polluting the environment to bear the full cost of environmental restoration and to compensate the affected communities. We recognize the complexity of responding to an incident of this scale, and we do acknowledge the official stance taken by the two mining companies to accept responsibility and to offer to compensate the affected communities. However, the magnitude of this disaster, as now verified through scientific data and diplomatic advisories, demands a comprehensive reassessment of all proposed compensation in consultation with the affected communities. It is our considered view that any compensation package arrived at without the active participation of the affected communities through a transparent process is null and void and is bereft of any legal or moral legitimacy. The coalition maintains that adequate compensation must account for intergenerational harm, including long-term health effects, loss of livelihoods, ecosystem collapse, and water insecurity. To this end, we therefore urge the government to implement bold, decisive, and transparent measures to hold the polluting mining companies fully accountable in the pursuit of restoration, fairness, and long-term national resilience to the fullest extent. The government must avoid a repeat of the Kafue tragedy, whose devastating effects are still ravaging communities to this day. We also demand full accountability and radical transparency from all responsible parties, including government regulators and the mining companies. This includes public disclosure of environmental assessments, clear timelines for restitution, community-led monitoring processes, and legally binding commitments to long-term environmental and health rehabilitation. Accountability
And I will first start with Mr. Peter Munde. Mauritian Mkwai. All right. So, Teacher Nick, how has this situation affected you and your family?
Situation ni kwena twa ya bire kwena ale sana yo nani ya shirin sa ika nan kare ka kwena ni estudia but mukyo balembere mu nkalata efya kitikwa n'okulondoola eddwaliro ino kwena tulimu wacha ntunao takribu inoyo ya ku section yetu mushiri waliokalika amenshi yaliolika noka bali ino nchika katulema because fwe bambi twaikala mu kulima ine nakwata abaana abali 3 abali kuma college nomba baisawo nawo na umushiri mbani tunalabumba shani na mfwe bali kulya twalabumba shani bantuira mulamu ino ifo kulagata mpira 1980 nga mwapenda miaka mingi sana elio balo mjini baisa kunisha mo asidi na bakaru sali wonse kuya kwina baisa sinanda ine epo na ikaira kuya nesubira ba mopani balapanga wino amagamu yawe kaya tukapo not keeping a single day but come to the river mjini bena baisa panga magamu ayawe kosa which is very bad. Mukutangira futi twalibegere ukweba kitamwabira damu tukominga bitokatamushi bena tabale mtwa government yesu kadushene tabayishire kamba ukubomba banya ukwisa bona tabajamba ukula bomba jawe takangalesta affect mutukulebu ukwisa bona batamba ukubomba banya twalibegere 2019 kyalisa kumuga twatamba ukulanda imwe isimwaona uda compensation tayari ino 2025 ageni yalisa kumuga elo nomba twachire no apa tatwaikali kufye because ifwe emotile mwisa umu elo nomba kwali ukwitako na ba ZNBC na bamwe bajishiro mwisa stautinesi epo kyachire upasite okula kwide ku tengamla.
Okay. Right. So, just to highlight something, so Mr. Petalenge simply said the disaster has affected his family in many ways than one, and it has affected their daily lives in terms of how they pretty much run things. They can no longer farm, they can no longer fish, they can no longer do all the normal activities they used to do. Prior to this, they had conversations with the government saying they shouldn't put these dams or pretty much allow this mine to settle there. But unknowingly, the residents just found themselves in a situation where the government now had allowed this particular mine to start operations, and then they said it will not affect the people. He also, I think, highlighted the fact that Mopani has better dam structures which are strong, but this mine in person does not have this particular dams. And yes, pretty much that's all I got from that one point. And more of that, so are there any health problems at Guayaramaneka community?
No problem eko yali brand wa kwa kapelima mamuna Problem are still there. Ibyakuvugena ibiro byasangwa because baba bakakona unless ngabantu bako umuntu ule bayishi bathi umuntu ayibona don't even a single day bayisa umuntu bayishi okwebathi umuntu alipe bwino so let it start.
All right, so with the question on health problems, he says they have not really done full investigation, especially to see which extent, but the likely possibility of having health problems is actually very high, and there's need for, I think, the government and pretty much people in the health sector to just have, I think, samples taken from people in this community. Okay, has there been any compensation kuperwa indalama nangu ifindu tila bashe watu waekata nako
Apa muku ya kuntanchi sirefu aitwa first ino wale pera compensation umuntu ba mupima achiwa ubundi wakwe uchekumba uchekumbi wantu ulishanya mbara pera compensation tabu achiwa status solution tuhi leo na mbara pera nani compensation issue kwino no tabu pera compensation tawishi wengi masosha na mdate na mda je mtu hapo mai compensation ni ya momeshi.
All right. So he's merely highlighting that compensation, firstly, but Okoya didn't
Compensation
Okoya didn't
compensation dia 2019 Okoya tayari. So number apa ia 25 tayari.
So he highlights that there was a form of compensation in 2019, but it was not enough. And also he has a key point saying for this one, for people to be compensated, they should run tests to see the extent at which their lives have been affected. It might be their surroundings, it might be their personal health. Then actually have a form of compensation that actually caters for that particular damage that has been actually done. And also, to other panelists, do you have anything you could add to, especially the questions that have been asked to Mr. Peter?
Yeah, thank you very much. As earlier mentioned, my name is Caesar Hateman, coming from Zambia Council Business Programs Manager. There are quite grave concerns that we have noted regarding the collapse of the dam in Changishi by cenometers, as well as distance of effluence by Romjin. And as Zambia Alliance of Women, we support from our partner Center for Substantial Environmental Accountability, CTA, as well as Agent Action Fund, Southern African Trust. We are cognizant of some of the challenges that communities are grappling with. As the community victim of these human rights violations, we are seeing with great concern the extent to which these the important lives. It's number one. For example, yes, we are alive to the fact that the report spoken to as a coalition, especially that there has not been a comprehensive study and not been a proactive action to hold these multinational. And this clearly speaks to why, as a country, we lack beyond in terms of regulatory failures that has compounded all these problems that we're speaking to. Most importantly, we have seen complacency part of the regulators, the department as well as ZEMA, in terms of enforcement mechanisms. And when you look at the value disruption that will come as a result of this spillage, the collapse of the dam and discharge of wetlands along Jim, clearly now we are seeing the things that have been spoken to in terms of presence of heavy metals. Because we said even earlier that it's not just a discharge of acidic effluent to 50 million liters into the pristine Kafue River basin. We were also cognizant that we also needed to take stock of the presence of heavy metals in the pristine Kafue River and also the downstream effects. Speaking to the communities, you will see that one of our members in Kalusal, Evelyn, she developed rash when she used water from her water well, which she had done. And little did she know that the water well was contaminated. When she asked that water, she developed, even now, she's actually developing rash, despite having gone to the hospital to look for medication and support in terms of health concerns that you addressed. So this rash, time this woman goes to the hospital and asks for medication, she applies rash will and rash will come on the other side. So rightly so as the victim of this human rights violation has pointed out, there is no comprehensive uh, health assessment that has been done to the lives of the community in terms of the health.
Thank you so much. These questions specifically aiming at a point of view, so we end that what laws in Zambia protect the environment and regulate mining? How do they apply?
Thank you. I'll start by saying we do not have a shortage of laws in this country that regulate. I think with regards to this case, I'd rather speak from a public health and environmental point of view because the disaster has already happened. Nations have already been breached. You can talk of the Mines and Minerals Act. There's going a lot of amendments, and right now there's some amendments taking place. And looking at a situation like Mines and Minerals Development makes it an offense to discharge, when I say poisonous effluent into a river or into a major river or a major water body in this country. And such an offense carries the sentence of up to 10 years in prison. That's what the Management Development Act says. If you go to the Environmental Management Act, again, they are criminal sanctions to the discharging of effluent into a major river. And it also provides lengthy prison sentence along with a fine. Right? If you go into the constitutional framework, constitutional framework, like I mentioned, Article 255 contains what is called the polluter pays principle, which is also carried in also the piece of the Environmental Management Act. So the polluter pays principle simply states that a person or an entity that causes damage to the environment has to pay for its remediation and have to pay in full. So if you look at our legal framework, there are civil sanctions
Thank you so much. So, what responsibility does cinemators have under the Zambian and international law, and what legal options do the affected communities have for getting compensation or justice?
Can you come again?
So, okay, what legal responsibility does cinemators have under the Zambian and international law, and what do affected communities have? What legal options do affected communities have to get compensation or justice?
Okay. As I've already said, in as far as the polluting companies are concerned, it's not only Sino Metals in this case. But there is also Rongjing Mining, who also released some effluent into the Mwambashi stream. So, in as far as the legal responsibility, it's good that the company has already accepted responsibility for this. So, as I've mentioned, that we have what is called the polluter pays principle in this country. So, what the companies are responsible for, they are responsible for paying for cleaning up or restoring the environment to what it was before this disaster. And they're supposed to meet the payment in full, right? And also, because there's a case of heavy metal pollution that we're talking about now, which is kind of expensive, or should I say very expensive. So the two polluting companies are responsible for paying for whatever cost might be incurred in cleaning up these heavy metals that have been deposited in the stream and in the community, and also to meet the health, or should I say, the medical bills of anyone who might be affected by this. Also, they also have a responsibility to compensate in full the communities that are affected. And also, they also have the responsibility to pay punitive sanctions to the government of the Republic of Zambia and the people of Zambia. And also, there's also a criminal liability to this, as I've already mentioned. It is open for the government to pursue criminal sanctions. The law allows for that. So all those are legal liabilities that are there. And then in terms of the community, first of all, this is not just a community problem, it's a nationwide problem. If you look at Section 4 of the Environmental Management Act, it places a duty on every Zambian to cooperate with the state in protecting the environment. So it means you and I, everyone here has got a duty to help in safeguarding our environment. So in terms of the recourse that is there are a lot of angles, like I mentioned. There's a criminal route. Any member of the public can commence a private prosecution according to the Environmental Management Act. Again, any member of the community can commence a civil action to recover damages and to recover compensation for the community from the mining companies or from the polluters if they are found liable for polluting.
Thank you so much. All right, this question goes to Mr. Raymond Gonzalez. We haven't heard your voice. Right. So, what do the independent test results from the Finnish embassy show about the need for open and honest environmental reporting?
Thanks. Now you are hearing my voice. To begin with, the situation is very concerning, and it just reemphasizes what we've always talked about, that these processes that lead to development, be it economic, mining, or any other process, should be anchored on strong governance mechanisms. And my discussion will be anchored on what I call the hardware of these processes, which is governance, because I know my colleague is very strong legally. My colleague is very strong in environmental issues. and that is the software of these processes. But I'll focus on the hardware, which is governance. Now, the report, first of all, exposes us as a country that we have weak oversight mechanisms. That's number one. And we need to be serious because there are lives involved in these issues. Serious in terms of strengthening institutions that will provide this oversight that we're talking about. Secondly, we need to ensure that all the players in these processes are not only responsive to government. First and foremost, they need to be responsive to host communities, because government operates to serve the community. Investors operate to serve the community. And responsiveness is not only with the government. And you will agree with me that in terms of oversight, in terms of operational responsiveness, there are weaknesses. Most of the time, the communities are not availed with the results arising from monitoring some of these processes. And this is the issue that we are pushing, and ensure that, first of all, the players are responsive, like I've said, to government, responsive to the communities, but also because of the responsiveness, you see that information flows. You cannot hold anyone accountable out of ignorance. You need the information, because the information then is the basis for you to start asking questions. Thirdly, we need to ensure that there is a deliberate move for communities to engage in meaningful and constructive, honest conversation with the operators, the players in these processes, but also responsible and meaningful conversations with government. Why should we have an external bring out the truth when we have mechanisms that protect the people and bring out the information that is required for the people to make right decisions? And so for me, the issue here is this report exposes us, and we need to rise as a country and ensure that we start working on strengthening the mechanisms that protect the environment, but also protect the people that we are supposed to serve.
Right, very well articulated. For now, we will take questions from the media and the audience. Probably take, oh, there's already a hand. Okay. Okay. So please, let's have a mic going around, and we'll have 3 questions from the media and the audience.
Um, Good morning, everyone. As I said, I'm the Italian ambassador, and I wanted to explain to you just a little bit what our perspective is. Why are some embassies, the embassy of Italy, the embassy of Finland, the embassy of Canada, represented here, and why have we been following this case so closely? Well, the job of a diplomat, job of an embassy, is to observe and report. And of course, because our people back home, our public opinion, as it were informed about this environmental disaster and about the reoccurrence of environmental disasters connected to mining in Zambia. Because the public opinion was very concerned, we received questions from our ministries, from our governments, to ascertain what the response of Zambia would be to this disaster. The reason why we've been asked is manifold. One, of course, is the immediate one, the evident one, is the one that is represented by our travel advice. We advise our nationals on our website to be careful when they approach these areas. But that's, if you like, the most trivial one. The second one is that, well, we are countries that want to cooperate with Zambia, and we want the people, the industries, um, that cooperate with you operate in a safe environment, and they themselves do not produce damages to, due to lack of regulation or enforcement. And the third one, because we are human beings. And whatever happens anywhere on this planet concerns us all in terms of the damage to the environment and to climate change. So that is why we are here today, and that is why we have been following these cases so closely. And thank you so much to my colleagues at the Embassy of Finland who have stepped up, and thanks to the company on the ground that they had produced this report, this analysis. What strikes me is that it had to be them to do it, and not perhaps somebody from inside Zambia. The other thing that strikes me is that we are here 4.5 months after the disaster, starting to have a debate about it. And finally, members of the press. I've seen very little noise in the Zambian press about this. There has been more noise in Europe about it. This would make the front page, had something like this happened in Italy, this would have made the front page of every newspaper every day for months until it was resolved. I didn't see that happen. The conscience of the people about these problems has to be arisen by you, by the press. You have an obligation to bring it up. And so thank you very much for doing it today. And we will continue. I think I can speak on behalf of some of my colleagues. We will continue to watch. And we know, as the gentleman was highlighting, there is legislation in Zambia. But what about the enforcement? That is the word, that's the key word, not just on this particular issue, but I think on a lot of issues that concern the development of this nation. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Any questions from the video? Okay. Right. Okay, one. Okay, we'll take that one and then we'll go back to just another question for the panel. Yes, and then we'll get back to the media again. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the presentation. Just one question also for the vision. Assuming that your proposals on restoration, screening of affected people, and implementation of the contamination tools is not made, are you considering taking action on behalf of the community, like it happened in Chihuahua when the Chichimas was affected?
All right. Okay, there's another hand, so we could just take the last question there.
Good morning. I'm also at Kafue from Prime TV. I would like to get from the panelists some of the short-term measures as we are looking into maybe getting the renegotiation or reassessment of the compensation. What short-term measures should we be looking at in terms of the people who are around that particular area? Because in one of those advisories, like the one from the US, they're saying you are advising people to actually stay away from the contaminated areas for up to 24 kilometers, if I have it correctly. That's like 15 miles. So for those who are staying in those areas or the communities camped around those areas, probably they do not have any other place to move to. So what short-term measures would you suggest that we look into? Thank you.
All right. Feel free to take the questions. Let's just be
short and sweet with the answer. Okay, I'll start with the second question. I'll answer from my end, and I'll allow my colleagues to finish because it's such a broad topic. So we asked what the short-term measures should be while we wait for the reassessment of the compensation. First of all, I would like to say that it's a tragedy, and I say this with utmost sincerity, that it's a tragedy that we got to learn about a compensation package through a press, I think it was a press conference from the government. And we have a community member right here. The members of the community were not part of the negotiation of that compensation package. So as we see today, nobody knows what parameters or what criteria was being used to calculate that compensation package, which is very sad. And that is why we are calling for a reassessment, which is transparent. I think when this disaster happened, we were told that an independent company was going to come and assess the damage and that the findings will be made public. 4 months down the line, I'm yet to see that report. I don't know if anyone in here has seen it. If they have, they can share it. But we have not seen it. The only thing we were told was that there was a 16 million kwacha compensation package, which we do not know where it came from. So, what is the short-term measure? I think we need to go back to the drawing board and start doing things correctly. I think this whole issue has been mishandled. That is my sincere analysis, and as a concerned citizen, I think this issue has been mishandled. We need to go back to the drawing board and do things properly. The community member here has spoken that there hasn't been any analysis of the extent or the health of the people. That is primary concern because we are dealing with human lives here. No one has bothered to check. So I think we need to start from there and check to say, how far has the contamination gone to the people in that area? The US government has advised its citizens to stay 24 kilometers away. How about our citizens who are right there in the vicinity of the area? Are they not people? Are they not human beings? So we need to think about that. All of us, the responsibility is on all of us who belongs to this country. And then you asked if we are considering any legal action. Should I call it our plea? I don't want to call it a demand. Should our plea for a more open process, a more transparent process, and a reassessment of whatever compensation package was announced? Yes, litigation is always on the table because the law allows every person in this country to take out an action in defense of the environment. So my answer to that is a simple yes. But at this point, and since the disaster happened, we have been trying to see or to keep the door open to more, should I say, more consultative and more collective response to this situation. And unfortunately, what has been happening is that the mining companies have decided to cut everyone out, and they just decided to talk to the government alone, as if it is the government that is affected. But the truth of the matter, as my colleague here said, is that the first point of call is the community, and there is no response to a community problem that can happen without the community itself.
All right. I'll speak to the first question. If nothing happens, what are we going to do? To begin with, I think it would be a betrayal to the people. And it being a betrayal, I think that we've already been challenged. That I think we need to step up in terms of calling out inaction, calling out irresponsible decisions, calling out irresponsible practices. And so I think the onus would be on us to continue pushing this issue, and the media should help us to bring these things out there when we call out the people that are supposed to act. I think that when people speak, it's just good practice that you respond. If you don't have the capacity, there is no shame in saying, yes, we paid, but we do not have the capacity. It's from that response that support or assistance from others comes in. But at the end of the day, the effort is to ensure that the people are given what they deserve. The people are respected. The dignity of the people is ensured. So yes, we'll continue talking, but the responsibility and the shame will be on the duty bearers that need to make sure that these things do not happen.
All right. Yeah, just as a rider to what my colleagues have spoken to. I think we have an opportunity as a country really to strengthen our national laws. And as part of the technical working group that is developing the National Action Plan on Business and Human Rights, we have just finished our national consultations on developing, on consulting communities within Zambia in terms of, with a view of strengthening our national laws that relates to business and human rights. So we have an opportunity because when you look at the United Guiding Principles on Business and Human Rights, the state has a duty to protect human rights. The corporations who are multinationals have a duty to respect human rights. Communities need to have access to effective remedy. Under those pillars, fundamentally important, we are cognizant of the fact that we have not gotten there as a country. And as part of the team, we are hoping that we sometime this year, we would be able to come up with a national action plan that speaks to national law in terms of strengthening our national laws.
Okay, so this is a question for you, Mr. Secretary, and could you just, could this damage spread further or become permanent? And why is it urgent to clean up the environment now and monitor in the long term? What strong environmental rules are needed?
First and foremost, I've just spoken to a very fundamental aspect that looks at strengthening our national laws. It is important, therefore, that even as we look at these regulated failures that we've spoken to, we need to get to a drawing board to have laws that are very strong. Because if you're looking at, for example, issues around compensation, Maluri did speak to the issue of how they arrived at that. There was no consultation, there was no involvement of the communities. If we don't have strong laws that speaks to that, corporate or multinationals have understood or studied our national laws in terms of their weaknesses, and they are getting away with this corporate impunity. It is imperative, therefore, that we all come together as nationals to ensure that we rally behind all these processes that we're doing. The coalition is doing a lot of great work individually and collectively to ensure that we get to a point where we have laws that protect communities, but also ensure that multinationals operate in a manner that respects the rights of communities.
All right. So with that one, we'll still, I think, throw it over to the audience, and this also includes our audience online. So we'll take questions from the audience. We'll take about 3, I think 4. All right. So yes. So that was the first hand from back there. So we can take that one first.
Okay, so this is from the audience online, and it's coming from someone Kennedy. So he's asking, what more can Zambia do to attract responsible investment?
All right.
I think we've already answered.
Sorry, this is not really a question, but a point of debate. Because we know with the climate change, there will be a scramble for particular minerals that Zambia is very rich of. And the government also has this goal of increasing copper mining and other mining of other minerals. But at the moment, we can still mine in environmental protected areas. We have ZEMA and we have the environmental impact assessments, but I have been involved in environmental impact assessments myself, and we do know there's a big lack of stakeholder consultation even from the start. So what we are discussing now is how do we react to that something has happened, but actually the discussion should also go about how can we even start from point zero when we have to decide, are we going to mine and where are we going to mine and how are we going to mine? We know there's mining in forest protected areas, we know there's mining at the banks of rivers, we know there's a lot of gold mining and pollution. We saw the images on social media of cattle and dying and people using contaminated water. So instead of being reactive, we have to be proactive. How are we going to do that? That is one of the debates we still have to have. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much.
Good morning. My name is Mina Wina. I'm the CEO for Soil First Zambia Limited. I think for me, it's not the question, is my statement. And the statement basically that other country, I think Zambia is close to getting to be ashamed of itself. You know, at this age, when we have a spill, we have a damaged situation like this, we have to wait for a foreign international company to come and assess it. Then they are booking hotels, and then they have consultants. And then from there, they get 4x4s, go on site, spend 3 weeks. As a country, we need to put mechanisms which will work immediately. Okay? The spill is done, Zema goes in. What does Zema do? Has it got a budget? Does Zema have a budget for spill in the organization? If not, is the person who is deemed responsible, have they been identified quickly? Are they paid? How much are they paid? Everything is centered around paying the people whose land and the livelihood have been affected. But the spillage and the damage is continuing as we speak. The soil is being degraded. And those people, as mentioned by other former speakers, they are alive, they're inhaling pollutants. Maybe if they still have gardens, some kind of small gardens, they're eating that pollutant through the plants they're eating. If you're drawing water in deep wells, they're still getting affected. So I think my last point is that we need a quick response plan in conjunction with an association like this esteemed one, this coalition, in conjunction with government and stakeholders such as ZEMA, where very quickly when things happen, things are put in place. Who's responsible? What's happening? We don't need international companies to come and test ourselves. We've got NRC here, we've got ZARI, we've got testing machines all over the place. Let's test the soil. How much acid is in there? Get the report within hours. It's been 4 months, as mentioned. This is when we're getting the report from a dear foreign country which is concerned. Thank you.
All right. So we'll take 2 more questions, then have a response, and we'll get back to more questions.
Good morning again, and thank you, panelists. My question is on the studies. I believe there are several studies that are being done by individuals and different entities. Is there a way as a coalition that we can consolidate the findings? Is there a way we can consolidate the findings that are being the findings of the studies that are being undertaken? I believe there are studies that are particularly focusing on the impacts of the pollution to wildlife. Most of the studies presented here are speaking to the human health and the livelihoods, but I believe there are studies that also focusing on the impacts of this pollution to wildlife. And when it comes to taking legal action, I think this study will be very important to quantify the damage that has been caused. So is there a way that we can get these studies, the findings of these studies? Maybe this is already happening, and for those of us who don't know how we can contribute, what are the channels that we can contribute the findings of our studies to quantify the damage? Thank you.
All right. Good morning, everyone. I'm Mike Amonso from Action in Zambia. And the following are my questions and probably my concerns. I'll still re-echo what Ambassador Enrico commented on and his why. The first one is, based on these findings, are we being able to, first of all, take stock of the assessments that are done by the Mining Service Department? Because they do regular checks on the tailing dams. We tried to look at the past 1 year or the past 2 years of the reports and the best method in approving those reports. I'm saying this because Roxy came into play after an aerial assessment that showed that there was a leakage. So in other words, there were colleagues that went there physically underground to see, and they couldn't tell. And it had to take an aerial survey to see where the spirit from Roxy was coming from. I think not for that, we wouldn't have captured that. So the question is, to what extent are these assessments revealing such kind of things? Because what I'm saying is, the current status is just one case. There are a number of mushrooming minings that we have. The next might happen elsewhere. The question is, how proactive are we on that? The second part is on the cleaning process. So according to the humanitarian and emergency standards, is that when an emergency happens, and especially when we're talking about heavy metals, the longer it takes to clean, the more the metals will stay in the what? In the environment. And the more the metals stay in the environment, the more damage they will cause. And therefore the cost of cleaning up goes up. To what extent, first of all, the mining itself, based on the assessments, are proactively involved in the cleaning process. Secondly, if you are still waiting for the consultant to do a research study, once these metals are still in the environment and the community continue to be affected, the grave impact is what has happened so far in Kafue that we'll be talking about now in championship. To what extent can we do that? The last question is, I want to ask Council, you've said we've been using an approach of engaging dialogue and we've been trying to discuss on how we can reach a consensus on how to deal with this issue. And now, the mining has cut off everyone to engage. Don't you think that that's a clear indication that we must use alternative options? And I would strongly be biased to the colleague that previously said, don't you think it's high time that we launched a legal action to really bring the first of all, the companies to book and again compel the Zambian government to act on this issue urgently? Thank you so much.
All right. Alex, it's your time to respond.
Okay, thank you very much for the concerns that have been raised, particularly in terms of how can we be more alert in terms of responding to these damages that come as a result of dam collapse, discharge of influences to the water bodies. Well, I think that from our angle as the women rights organization, we have done quite well in terms of training environmental human rights defenders. And essentially, this is a very important process of capacity strengthening of communities with a view of alerting us in terms of what is happening, but also having the ability on their own to determine the damages that are happening in the community where we may not have an office. So it could be the use of video footage through the mobile phone, And I think this helped or became quite handy in terms of us designing interventions to respond to the collapse of the dam. And we quickly mobilized and went onto the ground to engage the support the communities. But also, you must realize that this is not an easy undertaking. State restrictions, some of them are captured. I mean, I'm one of the person who was literally locked up when we went to engage communities for this dam collapse, for literally being at the police for more than 4 hours, literally detained. And that also tells you that it's not a walk in the park. It requires for us also to evolve in terms of how responsive we become to those issues that are not being reactive, like she has alluded to. I think that we need to be more proactive. And then our proactiveness all lies in how we can cooperate with like-minded institutions in terms of design and intervention, but also how we pass that information to communities. In terms of the how long this discharge of heavy metals stays in the environment and the bigger the damage, I can't agree more with you, Michael. That is essentially what it is. But like I alluded to, these are not easy processes to undertake. Like my sister earlier mentioned, you need a multifaceted skill set to look at, for example, soil test, aquatic life, and many other things. For you to have a very strong case to build up, for you to go the route of litigation. I'll not speak to that and provide an opportunity for my colleague to speak.
There is a suggestion from the lady there that there is need for us to do a comprehensive analysis of the impact of this situation. I can't agree more to that suggestion, but I think that even when we talk about compensation, you need to understand the extent of the impact. And that actually goes to agree with your suggestion that maybe we need to go deeper and not only focus on the impact on the people, but also impact on the environment and other living organisms that depend on the environment. But more importantly, for us that are doing advocacy, I think it will strengthen our case. And when we are engaging responsible people, we actually guide and give valuable input in ensuring that we restore or we deal with the problem. The issue around excluding communities in the conversation, I think that is very suspicious. And we can't sit back and allow that to go on. It is a known fact that communities, regardless of their technical incapability, they are key stakeholders. And in one way or the other, you need to create space for them to voice out on issues that concern them. We are doing a number of interventions in the extractive industry and mining, and we've seen that this can work. We create spaces for conversation between communities, mining operators, and governments. And through those conversations, we are seeing progressive measures arising from those conversations. So we can't underestimate the voice of the community. We need to create that space. And us as a civil society organization, we can facilitate that. And maybe that is a call to us to ensure that we create the platforms for this conversation. There was an issue around it goes to the same thing around transparency. Maybe let me talk about generally public affairs management. I think there is a growing concern of unnecessary opacity in the conversations around public affairs management.
I'll give you an example. We wanted to start an intervention with a defense wing in this country. The intervention was to promote integrity in defense procurement. And right from the first meeting, we were told that that was impossible because us as non-state actors had no right to have access to records concerning defense. Maybe that is correct. But what if the question was for us to have access to records that have to do with a football club sponsored by a defense wing? Is that still confidential? So I think we need to have deeper conversations and not hide in this issue of confidentiality. It's an issue of good governance to ensure that to the extent possible, we provide necessary information to other stakeholders, especially non-state actors, for constructive and responsible conversation between the governors and those that are governed.
All right, thank you so much. Okay, I'll briefly respond to what the questions came. Kennedy said, what can Zambia do to attract responsible investment? I think the answer to that is very simple. We need to start being serious, and we need to start loving our country a bit more. That's my simple answer to that. Because there's a saying in English that when the cat is away or when the cat is asleep, the mouse plays. So these investors are here to make money. They are not here for anything else. So if they find any loophole that they can exploit, they will exploit it. And you can't blame them for that. We blame ourselves because we are the ones who went to sleep. So if we want investors to be serious, I mean, this is not the only country where mining happens. It's not the only country in the world where mining happens. But why is it that mining disasters keep happening over and over and over again on our turf? Then it's an indictment on ourselves that we are not serious about our regulatory framework. We're not serious about how we handle investors. We reduce ourselves, for lack of a better term, I'm sorry to say this, we reduce ourselves to beggars instead of partners. We look so desperate for investment that we are willing to turn our country into a wasteland. So it starts from there. If we want investors to be serious, we should start by being serious ourselves. Because as we speak right now, we don't know whether Sino Metals is operating or not. But does anyone here know? We don't know, right? That's how serious it is. But we were told that Sino Metals was closed after the disaster, right? The leach plant was closed in February. This is June. We don't know. There hasn't been any feedback after that to say after Sino Metals closed, this is what has happened. Now they've been allowed to, you might be shocked that they've been allowed to start working again. I will not be shocked. But talking about seriousness, like what Caesar said, I'll combine it with the question that she said, our sister over there, she said, can we consolidate the studies? Can we put them together? And to echo what my colleague Caesar said, these are not easy undertakings. Sometimes they're dangerous. There are people who have been arrested for simply visiting Sino Metals. I'm a lawyer. I can go into a prison and see someone who has been condemned to death. Even a prisoner is more free than this community member. And I'm saying this with utmost sincerity because we have been there and we have seen what the dangers is. Caesar and some other colleagues were detained for more than 4 hours for simply going to interact with the community. Right now, if any of you go there, I'm not sure if you will come back. I don't know. No, this is the truth. And this is very serious because if people are trying to put in interventions to help the community which is in need, then why should state institutions interfere with that? Why? That is an indictment, and as my colleague here from KZ say that there's unnecessary opacity in this thing, right? We were told that there is a report of compensation. I don't think it has been made public. No one has ever seen that report. It is only resident in the corridors of power, which is most unfortunate. Anyway, to respond to what Sandra said about we have a goal of increasing mining output, there's lack of stakeholder consultation in the EI process. I agree. When you look at any mine in this country, the law is very clear that before any mine or any mining operation commences, there must be an EIA that is done, environmental impact assessment, right? And the EIA process is defined in the regulation, and public participation and stakeholder consultation are embedded in those regulations. However, the reality on the ground is most of us just wake up, tomorrow there's a mine next to us. We don't know where it came from. And if you go to Zema, they will tell you that they approve the mine. And the mine has all the documents, all the approvals, mine safety, Zema, everything. Reportedly that the EIA has happened. Now the question is, how did the EIA happen without the public knowing? Right. So our institutions are complicit in this. Right. For Sino Metals to start operating and for them to have that tailings facility, it had to go through an approval process. And there were institutions that checked their designs and approved them. That is the truth. If you go to them, they have all the documents. Now, why did their dam fail if it was checked by our technocrats? Isn't it the job of technocrats? They have to check the integrity of those designs. Are they going to last before it even happens? So it means that, dare I say that, we need to change how our regulatory attitude is. To change it from just a mere box ticking, should I say, a fundraising effort. The investor comes, pays all the fees, okay, approve, without even checking. The question we should ask ourselves is that, are these EIAs really taking place? Is there really an environmental impact assessment happening? Or people just submit documents to the regulator and then the regulator just approves? And then we only find out about these faults when a disaster like this happens. We have tried to get the EIA for Sino Metals and for Jing from Zema. Up to now, we haven't gotten hold of it. Yet, the Constitution says that access to environmental information is a right to every member of the public. Any issue to do with the environment should be out in the public, but it is not. And getting hold of it is not an easy exercise. Maybe we need to change our regulatory attitude towards this thing, because this environment belongs to every single Zambian. And then lastly, Michael, you asked, have we tried to look at these reports from the Mining Safety Department, and to what extent do these reports help? I think they're not helping, because if they were helping, this wouldn't have happened. That's my simple answer to that. So that means the question say, are they just reporting after checking, or they're just reporting because they have to report? And that is the thing that as Zambian citizens will have to be vigilant about and start checking these things. And they say, do you think it's high time we commence the legal action? Commence legal action, you need to collect a lot of information. You need a lot of data, a lot of or what they call evidence. And to be honest, collecting evidence on this case hasn't been the easiest. And we salute to everyone who has tried at great risk. And I'm not saying this as an exaggeration. It's not an easy thing to get any sort of evidence about these cases because of what is happening down at the site. Those who have bothered to go there will know what I'm talking about. So we have faith that our government, at the end of the day, will do the right thing. which is to look out for its people. And its people are you and me. But we are trying to get whatever information we can get and offer whatever help we can offer to the communities within our competencies, with the attended risks that are there. But yeah, we will try to play our part in helping the community. That's all I can say at this stage.
All right. Well articulated. For this one, we'll still go for some more round of questions. And just wind up, I think we take two, and then wind up. Okay. There we go.
Thank you so much, and good morning. Good morning. For me, my concern is the community. I heard him say they've been compensated twice, but then my question is the compensation ongoing? Because the damage has been done, and it will be there for a long time. We don't know when damage will come in to mitigate. So if they compensate you, they compensated you in 2019. They're still staying in the same space. Again, they'll compensate. You still believe in the same space until I don't know. I want to know how long is this going to go on? Because if they're going, for me, compensation will be they get their compensation and then they're removed from the site. That makes sense to me. But you're compensated, then you're still in the same space, meaning the compensation has to be ongoing. The community must kindly respond to this because it's a bit confusing.
All right. Just one more. Okay.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm speaking as a medical professional and a public health specialist as well. So I'm concerned about the health of the people. I did my bachelor's in India and I have seen people who have suffered from deformities, long-term deformities in generations because of such disasters. I want to ask, in the first disaster that happened in 2019, was there any efforts made to involve the Ministry of Health, the government as well, to look at the impact? I've only heard of one person, I might be corrected. Is there any number of people that we're looking at that have been directly impacted physically in their health, to say? And what measures have been made to reach out to the Ministry of Health to check up on the people, to screen? As he said, there hasn't been proper screening. So from 2019 till now, what measures have we put in as people and as concerned citizens, and also just environmentalists who are saying, okay, this is something that can be very impactful on the health of people. Also, I wanted to ask, we are seeing that there's different embassies that have got influence to also bring in a voice that can be heard. What have you also done to help the people that are being impacted by this disaster when it comes to their medical health? Because even if we talk about what the man was saying, the one from who is from the affected community, it's very true. What is the importance of being compensated if you're going to suffer a long-term health illness or deformities? Because these things have seen happen. They happen when chemicals come in contact with the human body. You might not know what you're going to give birth to in the next 2 years, 3 years, or even just now. So what impact is being done in that area?
All right. So for that round, we send it to the panelists. So we can continue the conversations online. Okay.
Thank you so much. And thank you to the panelists. My name is Gracia Galina. I'm from Zambian Delegate Person Association. And so my question really is around advocacy issues. What key advocacy issues can we pick as a consortium and a business institution which we can run with
I understand the report is out. Is it also available the public so that we can make citations as we do advocates issues with this issue and many others, of course. I'm also aware that it was around visitations to the site is a bit of a risk, but that risk, as advocates, I think we need not to front it because it will scare young people in here. I'm seeing a lot of young people here. Don't get scared because who wants to be arrested? And for the cause is good, right? But we wouldn't want to reach to that extent. And so is the report available for us to use in the various platforms where we are working in? Thank you. And also just to extend the thanks to our all-weather partners, the Finnish embassy, the Canadian embassy, the Italian embassy, for stepping in. Of course, it's an issue of having resources at our disposal to ensure quality assessments of the impact of the damage that has been caused. So on behalf of the advocates in here, we want to say thank you and ask that maybe perhaps after the report, what next? If those will be open to engaging further to see how various partners in here can reach out to continue the conversation. Thank you.
All right, we take it to the panelists. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Please, let's carry on. Let's carry on. Thank you so much. Thank you very much for those questions that have been asked, especially related to the issue of people being compensated twice. There are historical issues that speaks to those areas that you may not be privy to. So one thing that probably I could highlight, having worked in that area for a while, is that originally that land was owned by the CM, a state-owned institution at the time prior to privatization. When ZCCM was privatized, that piece of land was given to miners at the time who went and settled there to undertake agriculture-related activities. And subsequently, post-privatization, mining firms came in and established those mines. For example, in the case of Longgen, and so is Sino Metro. So in the case of Longgen, they have been extending their mining activities. Okay? And that's the more reason that you're speaking to say they were compensated. So for example, certain communities whose land will be taken away and they will be moved. But this mine continues to expand their operation. And subsequently, for example, if you lost maybe 2, 3, 5 acres of your land, and then you move to another place which is further slightly away from where the mining is, and this mine now extends their operations to those areas. So I thought of just bringing that historical background so that you could decipher what that entails, so that you don't miss a few things. Then there's the issue of public health consent. The Ministry of Health, was Ministry of Health involved when all this happened? Again, the onus is on not, the onus is not on us per se to be proactive. Government has a duty to protect people's rights, provided under the guiding principle. And we've not gotten, and we do know that we have a national law that speaks to that.
So government should have been proactive to ensure that it's their citizens who are, it's the citizens of Zambia who are affected. It should not even come from us. For us, we are actors in this space to amplify the voice and agency of communities who are minors communities. What measures have been put in place for people who have been impacted? What are the numbers and whatnot? Again, from the primary information that we were given after the assessment, we were talking about 252 plus, 256 plus of communities who were affected. I must mention here that we were in Chambishi just after the compensation narrative was pitched. What we have gathered, there are a number of communities who have not been included in that compensation list. And what does that mean? It means, for example, even just a downstream, not even downstream effects, there were communities who were just maybe 5-6 kilometers away from where the dams were. Some communities have not even received those compensation, those handouts that were being given, but yet their livelihoods have been disrupted. So again, when you're talking about this issue, it's not necessarily that we want to exaggerate it. These issues are real. And when we front an issue to speak to how problematic it has become to go and undertake intervention, it's not that we want to alarm everyone. Those issues are real. For example, in the case of where Sino Metals is operating, that is regarded as a protected mining area. And if you go in there as an actor without the consent of the mine, where the victims are residing, you can be arrested for criminal trespass. So it's not really that we want to front or scare anyone, but that's the reality of how things are. I also want to give my opportunity to my colleagues to speak to that. Maybe the community.
Ife baranga basiza kwebo kwe bati ifyanantani nga mwabishire kulya naba ishireko kulya baranga ni barya bare imyacho baisa uchekine mchende bamwe mbekate era numba ifaga ne kwe ba community ero twatia nishi mwala bekate because abeshe kushita witness in the 60 nani kan ero numba muri government ine kwina ile sungisha na yeye mama andi abantu nga baisa kukutwafwa baisa kukumisha government yabo baraisa kukumisha abantu ubikashwabo wati munate tebati nga baisa kukwafwa abantu yishba muna wati government iwinde kwa lekeni abale yafwa abantu bafwa abantu kukitina bafwa Don't you go back to the last time you go to Tababo Muntu, Usha Shiva, disaster here to Kapuja. You tell I'm not party na pesa. Number, if we no community, government in Yaisa, man, other people, companies, Ronjin and Sinometals. No, we are going to go to Penya 16.29455 hectares. What happened to what? 100,000. 1 lima. 1 hectare. Ngata ukwete ukulingana muni 1 hectare yo hectares. So na alisa pishamu fedine teneka neka zioka. Ngata wale pishamu na nikani. Nishnite 2,000. 507. Wonse efetwaba nomba muri yo ndarama kutwabusa so mukulanda bakwebo kwebacha ngamwachiwise konyambe wona muisha kufa matata kabeka tembala nene nomba abantu mwale tubira twalapo ifo tuyo kutungira abale tubira note abantu ba note abantu sorry note abantu Pirafina nga basaana okugatira bigati twalikwema kulungi twati nono twalikenga babantu abantu ekyo mutukulira nishimona abegatira kyali kitiko ekyo yo literacy passing but inspiration mukumona kwena ibifirerandibwa bibe nekaseko bikarandaba sisa.
All right. Okay. Do we still have time? Okay, thank you. For me, I'll talk about someone asked to say how long will this go on? Why the community has not been moved from where they are. Start with that is their home. Right. So if you are going to move people from their home, there needs to be an alternative place that they can go and stay and also pursue their livelihoods, the livelihood that they are pursuing in that area, right? So I think what we have seen on the ground is that we talked about the conversation in 2019, and Caesar has spoken to the historical issues, and Mr. Lange has said that the conversation in 2019 was not enough. So what it means is that it was not enough for them to move to another place. It's like if I'm moving you from your home, I have to give you an alternative home. I can't just give you, like what you say, that the current calculation is 31,000 kwacha for each person, right? So if I give you 31,000 kwacha and say leave your home, are you able to leave, madam? It's not possible, right? Yeah, so those are the issues that come in when you're talking about compensation. What is the adequate compensation? What are we trying to do? Are we trying to move these people to an alternative place? If it is an alternative place, then these people have to be provided with alternative home and also be given enough money to restart their lives again. He mentioned that they cannot farm, they depend on agriculture. Mind you, these are peasant farmers who depend on their fields for a livelihood. Now, if you're going to tell them to say, oh, I've given you 30,000 kwacha, let's find where you're going to go. That is, I think that is an injustice. That is a human rights violation because this person is being moved from their home. So those are the issues that my colleagues and I are speaking about to say an honest conversation needs to be had. A very honest conversation, which includes the members of the community. There is no way they can be left out of this, and there is no way you can just come and say, oh, we have agreed with the Sino Metals and Roxin that we're going to pay you 16 million. Where did the 16 million come from? Right? And how many people are in that 16 million? You say 507. If you divide 16 million by 507 people, it comes to 32,000. That's it. Then it becomes unfair and it becomes an injustice to impose that compensation package. And these issues that my colleague, the public health specialist, spoke about are not even part of the conversation. Yet these are the real issues. Because what is the point of giving someone 31,000 and they're going to die the following day? At this point, we do not know. We do not know. Even me where I am, I do not know. I've been to that area. I have drank the water. Maybe where I am, I'm sick as well. Because the American government told its citizens not to go within 24 kilometers. We do not know why they are saying that, right? We don't have our own experts who have checked why the Americans have said don't go within a 24-kilometer radius. So maybe Caesar and I, who have been to that area 3 times, we are already contaminated as well. And these are serious issues, right? Because we have people who live there. So what is the danger to their life before we can even float figures like 16 billion and whatever? They look very big on paper, but at the end of the day, they're quite useless because we haven't paid attention to what is important. What is important is the human life that is there. What is important is the animal life that is there. Because the animals are there, there's livestock, there's one. I know of an incident in Kafue. Ngawe is downstream from that area. It's very far from the copper belt. But some cattle died there and some vegetables got burned. So it's a comprehensive study needs to be done. Is it the same contamination from Jambishi that has reached Ngawe? Or there's another one that has happened along the way. So we need to work on our monitoring systems as well to ensure that we pick these things before they kill our people. So that said, the last one said we shouldn't scare young advocates. Please don't be scared. But the risks have to be mentioned that this is what is happening. And like Caesar said, this is the truth. It's not even Caesar himself was detained. A report from the Finnish embassy. I don't know if it's a public document and it's desirable for us to depend on the benevolence of the Finnish embassy. I think we need to have our own independent report done by Zambian experts, and the Finnish government has no obligation to us or to share the report with us. The institution which has an obligation to share the report with us is the Zambian government. The Zambian government is the one which has an obligation to Zambians and not the Finnish government. So for us getting the report from the Finnish embassy it's an act of what do they call it? Extraction. It's them who can decide they want to show us. But I would like to think that that report is only a very small study. It's not a big study. It's not a comprehensive study. A comprehensive study has to be done, and as the government promised, it has to be made public.
Okay. All right. So, in a nutshell, what is the call to action by the collision? So, including Vincent, this one is yours.
Okay, let me speak to one important question that was also raised by Justin on the aspect to do with advocacy. We have an opportunity to engage the embassy who have partnered with us on this course to leverage on that report in terms of translating it into local languages if it's made public, so that we could use that part of that report for people to, community members to decipher the content of what is in the report, and also communities living downstream. Okay, and that's also, this could be in form of infographics, it could be in form of just a layer fact sheet, those that people can easily be able to decipher in terms of the content of the report. That could be also an advocacy avenue to leverage. When you look at the issues of to do with compensation, and you look at the current resettlement policy, you will realize that in the form in which our current resettlement policy is designed, is not designed to factor into the issues around large-scale land-based investments. It's structured in the old times of people wanting to acquire land to go and resettle in those settlement schemes, and so on and so forth. So again, when you're looking at issues of compensation, it falls short, but we are also cognizant that there are strides that are being made by the current regime to review the resettlement policy, and I think that there are quite a lot of strides that have been made to almost concluding with that process. I submit.
All right, thank you so much. Right, so in conclusion, what is the call to action by the collision?
Okay, I think we've spoken for a long time. The call to action would be the environment is everyone's business. Right? This is not just a problem for the areas in the vicinity of the active field, but it's a nationwide problem. And all of us have to take an interest in this, and all of us have to take part in trying to pursue justice for the people and the animals who have been affected by this. And also to echo what His Excellency the Ambassador from Italy said, that the media is a key stakeholder in this, because the media is a platform in which the voices of the voiceless people from Kalusale and Luena communities are going to be heard. Their story. I think there's one journalist who made a documentary about the whole solar acid tears in the immediate aftermath. But I think we need more of such. We need the media to keep talking, to keep pressing, and to keep asking the right questions to those who have a responsibility to take action on this. I think we need to develop a culture of having a media that holds people accountable, whether it's civil society, whether it's government. The media should be able to ask the pertinent questions on behalf of the government, of the Zambian people. And finally, we, as a coalition, we are pleading or we are appealing with the powers that be, or the powers that be, and also the mining company involved, that let there be an immediate effort to try and clean up the heavy metals before it gets too far, before the contagion reaches far places. I'm saying this because the report from the Finnish experts, it's a private company that did the test. They say in the report that there is technology which is available to clean these heavy metals from the river, from the tailings and all, and maybe it's worth a try, as expensive as it is, to try and look at those technologies so as to intervene before the situation becomes a public health disaster for our people. Thank you.
All right. With that being said, we will invite Mr. Caesar to just come and give us our closing remarks. And also, the media, please see Zandy after everything is done. So do not move away. Please see Zandy after everything is done. Right, I think I'm going to please carry on. There we go, there we go. A big hand for him, encouraging.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for being part of this convening. As a coalition, Zambia Environmental Justice Coalition, we are extremely thrilled that you came to be part of this important convening, and it also calls for, and which we don't take lightly rather, but we also must appreciate that being the fourth estate, you have a critical role to play in enhancing our environmental integrity agenda, especially in view of critical minerals rush. The pronouncements by government of increasing 3 million metric tons already is an opportunity, but also poses a challenge in terms of livelihood disruptions, land grabs, as it were. And it's imperative, therefore, that we become or employ blue sky thinking approaches that could be used in terms of pushing this agenda of environmental integrity and ensure that we promote
responsible business conduct on part of multinationals to avoid this corporate impunity in terms of human rights violations. And we have a duty collectively to also see that the narrative changes. We know that multinationals have looked at our national laws and where the gaps and weaknesses are, and they are taking advantage of that. There are a number of narratives that have been pitched around communities who are sitting in Kalusale and Wazanga, where Longjing is, in terms of initiatives to how they move. That some of these attempts are deliberate, and as actors in the space, we need to be very instrumental in ensuring that we protect our heritage as Zambia, because it can only be us who can stand up for these injustices that speaks to human rights violations in the context of business operations. Furthermore, we continue to implore you to reach out to us on anything that you feel we could co-create with. It is important, therefore, that even as we continue to engage, there are a number of avenues that we can explore together. Because a step of a million miles was started with one state. A journey of a million states was started with one state. It is important, therefore, that we continue to co-create amongst ourselves. So on behalf of the coalition, we want to sincerely thank you, but more importantly, to recognize the efforts that have been made by our cooperative partners, the Finnish Embassy, the Italian Embassy, the Embassy of Canada, who have been quite supportive towards this cause. And indeed, it's a wake-up call to you, our colleagues from the media, to see how we can begin to authoritatively report on these environmental injustices that are being done by multinational companies. Corporate impunity has to stop now, and we need to ensure that we continue to hold them accountable. We have an opportunity as a country to strengthen our national laws through the process of development of a national action plan, which process is being led by Ministry of Justice, Human Rights Commission, ourselves, and other partners within the space, UNDP and so on. So it is important that you also find time to look at those processes in terms of what we are trying to do, so that when you report from an informed position, but take keen interest, because this environmental reporting is not easy. You need factual and evidence-based approaches. With those few remarks, I want to say thank you very much for all your time, for being part of this convening. We thank you on behalf of the coalition. Thank you. All right. And on that note, with everyone assembled here, I would like to say thank you for being with us. Let us continue the conversations online. Please let us engage. Thank you so much to the Zambia Environmental Justice Coalition and all media houses that made it today. CSO, to mention but a few. I'm your host, and my name is Wilkins Sigazwe. And remember, this is my responsibility, your responsibility, our responsibility. Thank you so much. Oh, and on another note, please, the snacks and tea are still available, and let us continue networking. Thank you so much.